Hello and welcome to another edition, episode 42 of the Lab Epstein podcast. Jim here coming to you from Tampa Bay, home of the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, and the American League champions, the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay also home to Tom Brady, who doesn't seem to age and still plays at an incredibly high level. And I think I know why. Joining me as always, my friend, co-host, former coach, professional evaluator, successful business owner, and the man who, when he wears his glasses, those thick frame glasses that I like, and I complimented him last week, he looks like Bruce Wayne. Jake Epstein.
I wish I felt like Bruce Wayne.
You look like Bruce Wayne, and you age like fine wine.
Yeah, that's it. Silvery.
Did you have a nice Valentine's Day, by the way? Did you make sure that you had a lot of people to buy for Valentine's Day?
Yes.
Wife, 3 daughters.
And the problem is I'm not home Valentine's Day. So I'm down in Texas. We have a coaching clinic for the big league here, the little league. So we're taking all the coaches kind of through how to set up practice. What are the important things, whether it's, 5-year-old, T-ball, 6-year-old coach pitch, 7-8 machine pitch, what is the best thing to do? It's something I've always wanted to do. If a league or a program gets on board, it's like, what's the one thing we can get 5-year-olds to do? Yeah. So we don't have to worry about it when they're 7. What's the one thing we can do at 7 so we don't have to worry about it at 9? And so we're building this really good relationship. So we're doing a hitting setup, but there's also we're setting up throwing programs for all the kids. In addition to the coaches, like how to set up a practice. Yeah. How not to waste your time. I mean, how many little league practices are like that? So anyway, I'm down here for that camp. I'm usually grumpy on Valentine's Day. It's kind of a consumer holiday, and
I agree.
It's kind of, I don't know. It's something that I have to do, so I do it.
Yeah, I was at the food store last night. I like to do my shopping on Friday nights.
The foods. I like how you refer to it as the food store.
How do you refer to it?
Like the grocery store.
It's the food store.
The food store. What do you like, a cow? Maybe it's a feed store. Is that where you're going to the feed store? That would be better. Store. It's a food. No, it is.
There are millions of people in this country who say, "I promise you," who say food store.
They're all from Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are in Tampa Bay.
Right.
By the way, I'm a little offended. You're not curious as to why Tom Brady. You don't think that?
No, I actually, that was the first thing I wanted to say, but I forgot.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Yeah, no. So just
I thought you were going to be curious. Like, why do you think he's?
Yeah. I thought you were saving it for something.
I was at the food store last night, and I'm going through and I'm buying my stuff, and I see all these like candy hearts and flour. I got my mom flowers and my sister flowers. Mm-hmm. But I see like all these candy hearts and the Russell. What do they call the Russell stove or what? Brand? Yeah. Well, they're not a sponsor of the podcast, so
no.
So I won't say their name right.
Russell.
So fuck them. I kid, of course. But all these chocolates all around, and I'm like, what's with this? And you put it perfectly. It's a consumer holiday. All right, so you're curious about why I think Tom Brady is still really good, and he's going to be good next year as well.
Yeah.
Are you really curious? If you don't want to know, I won't tell you.
I want to know.
It's his fast twitch fiber muscles, faster than any athlete ever in their 40s.
Really?
I think so. During the quarantine,
this hasn't been tested.
It's been tested in my eyes, my brain. Now,
because he's not a fast twitch muscle guy. Like he's not an explosive runner or jumper.
Hold on now.
Is it just his bionic arm?
I'm looking at
his brain.
He does have a very special brain. Mm-hmm. Here's how I look at it, though. I watched a game during the quarantine. Patriots against the Packers in 2002. Game's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Oh, if you want, you go back and you won't have time later. But the audience can go back and watch it and prove my point. He was very slow. He had an incredible arm back then. He's always been slow, but he was incredibly slow moving to me. When you look at it from an evaluation standpoint, he was very, very everything seemed methodical. And it seems like over the years he's gotten faster and faster. And you ask why? Well, maybe he's cut a little bit, lost a little bit of weight. Mm-hmm. But I watched him last week, watched him throughout the playoffs, and I've watched him all throughout the year. And I see a guy who doesn't still have the same arm strength Because if you notice some of his balls, they take kind of a nosedive. Do you agree with that? I mean, my mom said I was crazy when I said that.
I don't know enough about Tom Brady because I was not a Patriots fan, so I didn't watch very many Patriots games.
I think if you watch enough of his throws, you might see that while the arm strength is still there, it's not what it once was. Okay, so my point is, I see everything that he does now. He's not fast, but everything he does now is very quick. And it's his fast twitch fiber muscles. Feet get into position. He has tight core, so he has great torque in his throw. Yeah. Gets rid of the ball quickly. And I think everything just falls into place, in line, boom, boom, boom. And that's why he's still so good.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I did notice how efficient he is with his moves.
Exactly. I mean, we talk about efficiency, and in all seriousness, we talk about efficiency on this show. We touch on it almost every week. And if you go back and watch Peyton Manning's final game in the Super Bowl, how slow is he moving? I mean, and you look at his Brady's replacement in New England, Cam Newton, he's gotten slower. But Brady's, for whatever reason, is quick and efficient. And I think it has to do with his fast twitch fiber muscles.
I wonder how fast twitch those fiber muscles were when he was leaving the parade the other day. He didn't look very fast twitch.
Yeah. Brady's the only guy who can get that wasted and then pick up his daughter and just act like a normal, responsible father, literally like a minute later.
Yeah. Pretty impressive.
I
just like how he let loose a little bit.
Yeah, and he threw the Super Bowl trophy across the water. Yeah.
I wonder who was diving in. Right.
Chris Godwin had Scotty Miller. I think it was Scotty Miller. We're going local here. Scotty Miller dropped Chris Godwin's phone in the water. Yeah, so they almost dropped the Super Bowl trophy in the water. Right. Boy, when that thing was in the air, you can see there was a bunch of guys who were like, "We better catch it," and they were all. It was like when the bridesmaids and women at a wedding get together and they all seem to clump together and they want to grab the bouquet out of the air and it's always drops. That's what the Super Bowl trophy was like.
Only nobody was going to drop that thing. That was going to hit the bottom of the harbor real fast.
I know. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's my Tom Brady evaluation. Okay. Am I right? Well, you don't really care.
Does he live in Tampa now? Did he move family?
Lives in, from what I've heard, he lives about 10 minutes. He lives about 10 minutes from me. And from what I've heard, he lives in Davis Island.
Okay.
That's what I've heard. I don't know. I've never been there.
Well, there's huge tax savings for him living there and not in.
Well, it's in the great state of
Massachusetts.
Florida.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. None of those high tax Northeast states. No.
Where you came from?
Where I came from.
That's why everyone goes to Florida.
I was born into that. It wasn't my choice.
I know. You're never going back.
Well, never, ever, 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 ever.
Never say never.
Why would I go back when I can just live in Tampa Bay for the rest of my life?
That's right. Because they might not be champions.
Well, listen, I think the Bucks could easily repeat next year. The Lightning are never going to be bad because they've never been bad in their history of history.
No.
And the Rays are just always good. So look, the odds are with them. And there's the Rowdies team, the soccer team that's really good too. Or the football team, excuse me. They're really good as well.
Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah. Tampa Bay. And why would I move when my kids could be raised in Tampa Bay or in the area, go to you for online instruction, and then go to Steve at Swing Doctor or Stance Doctor, excuse me. Sorry, Steve. Stance Doctor right in Tampa, St. Petersburg for lessons.
Right.
Why would I do that? I bring up Steve, by the way, because I looked at his Instagram story last night, and he's doing, he does everything right, teaching wise, in my opinion. And I've been there, and it's a great place. It's so well put together. And he was doing with someone the tire drill, warming up, where
old school,
where the kid would hit the tire for resistance. We did that, and you still, I'm guessing you still do that. And he was hitting the tire for resistance prior to actually swinging at live pitches. So what are the benefits of hitting that tire besides the resistance? Because now that puts you in a controlled environment, right?
Yeah, it's like anything else. Like we hit a punching bag. The tire's kind of the old school method. I think I did in high school. It's mostly for resistance. So you give it a little bit more, right? Like you're trying to hit through that tire. You're trying to swing a little bit harder. But like any stationary object, you can think about your load. You can work on a slow load, work on where your balance is, making sure your foot's in the right position, your back knee's in the right position. If you're working on staying short to the ball, you can keep the back close to your neck or close to your shoulder as you rotate. So it's always a good system or process to get loose with, because it puts you in that controlled environment. And then as you get loose, you can start hitting it a little harder, hitting a little harder. And, sometimes that makes you feel good too. You can hold that contact position, make sure your hands and arms are in the right spot too.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off something that we talked about 2 episodes ago, which was gap-to-gap hitters. And this was a question I had while I was prepping for the show this week. And I don't think I asked it, and I should have. But I asked it last week during the power phase of our types of hitters series there. Are gap-to-gap hitters, though, more fundamentally sound than power guys?
It can be, and usually they are, because we talked about Tom Brady being tight, and efficient. Yeah, that's kind of what creates a line drive gap swing trajectory or swing plane. Because it's if you think loose, the barrel is going to start working away from the head early. The barrel is going to start working underneath the pitch plane closer to the back knee and back foot, and that's kind of a loose move. It's not a tight turn. It's more of a some kind of wrist move or hand move early, and then we rotate. And so, yes, meaning for the power hitter. So a lot of times the power hitters will, I don't want to say less efficient, because they're usually bigger and stronger to make up for that. But technically sound, they're usually not as, and again, everybody has their own opinion of what is technically sound. I happen to believe that we don't want to, throw the barrel away from the body early and open that wrist early and get on plane too early. I feel like we're trying to store that energy so that it releases at the right time out in front. So, somebody could argue with me that that's, they would rather see more of a power hitter move where that barrel drops early. But for me, in my opinion, and what I do in my player development, and if I'm scouting people, I'm looking for more of that line drive hitter trajectory, especially for players that, are under 20, 23, 24 years old.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast for new episodes every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We were a little late last week, by the way. I apologize for that. We were a little preoccupied in Tampa Bay, Florida, but the show is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn Radio, and the app. Of course, our YouTube page is up and running, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Follow us on social media at Jim Tara and at Epstein Hitting. And any questions that you may have, concerns, criticisms, life questions, please be sure to email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. We'll get to our topic here in just a moment. We've got a couple of listener questions that we have to get to, but we promised we'd get to this week as well, talking about spring training today. But first, I was perusing, I didn't know this, and I apologize. I was perusing this week the Epstein Online Hitting Academy, because we have to always fill a break with one of our segments. And I was going through the interactive training plans. I didn't know Bruce Bochy, though, did a testimonial for, I know he was friends with your dad, and I know he highly respects what you do, but I didn't actually know he did a video testimonial.
He did, yeah. I did work for the Giants, on and off for probably 6 or 7 years when they would have players that had issues, essentially during the season. I'd get called in to do things and to take a look and offer another set of eyes and opinions and maybe some different moves or drills that they should work on. So, when I asked him, he was like, of course, no problem. So that was really nice and actually somewhat unexpected. I didn't know he knew how to use a phone. So that was good.
Yeah. Also, I want to ask, too, about the Online Hitting Academy. How is it put together? There's a lot of drills there, a lot of drill sets. How is it put together in a way where the plan is easy to read for players to build that foundation?
So essentially the way it works is, a player signs up and uploads a video from their phone. So their parents usually take a a video of them. Usually the first video I like to see live action. It can be live BP, but not a T because players do different things. So I do a baseline and annotation analysis, usually with a professional comp. If it's a softball player, a college player that has really good mechanics, and so we kind of highlight that. It's usually about 10 minutes or so, that first one, to go through every part of the swing. And then from there, what I do is I figure out what's the most important thing we want to work on this week. So if it's an upper body issue, we'll work on that. If it's lower body, and then I build those weeks out. So when the player logs back in, they see, oh, you have an annotation ready. They click on that. They view what the voiceover that I did for them. And then after that, it says, okay, here's your drill plan for the next couple weeks. Mm-hmm. I want you to do, usually I'll put in 4 or 5 drills depending on the player, sometimes more, and they'll start basic and then they get more advanced to timing and rhythm and off speed stuff. But, in the beginning, we're trying to target that one most important issue that they have that's going to make them better next week. And so, they click on the video. It's unfortunately me, usually a student too, going through the drill process and telling them what to do and how to set it up. And then that player, what I have them do is they send me their next video submission of themselves doing the drill, so I can make sure they're doing the drills correctly, because the worst thing we can have happen is doing the drills incorrectly, right. 500 or 600 times every week. So it works really well. It's pretty smooth. And then we just kind of grow. And then after, they've been in it for a little while and their swing looks good, then they start sending me game videos. And then I can work, figure out if their timing is good, if their rhythm is good, if they're moving at the right time based on where the pitcher is.
Yeah. So for more information, log on to epsteinhitting.com, sign up for the online academy. I got to tell you, I feel like I was one of the, and I'm sure that there's other people across this country, maybe my age, who worked with you, maybe a little bit younger than me, that sort of feel this proudness of where you've built from and how your hitting tools and training has held up over the years through Ted Williams, through your dad, and of course now through you, preaching and teaching what the true, in my opinion, what the true fundamentals are of properly hitting a baseball, as taught to your dad by Ted Williams, and of course passed down to you.
It's pretty cool. There's people like you and, Jace Tingler, the Padres manager.
Sure.
He trained in that same basement you did way back
no
when.
shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me this?
Yeah, when he was
humble man.
He was with the Blue Jays. I think he was with the Blue Jays.
He was, yes.
At the time, yeah, when he was minor leaguer. So, yeah, actually I spoke with him, I don't know, maybe a year ago, right when maybe a little half. When he got the job, we got the Padres job, and we were catching up, and he's like, gosh, I remember being in that basement, getting after it. And it seems like a really long time ago, but it does, man. The swing works. Otherwise, I'd have a different career.
Well, you'd be successful in anything, but you're successful in this. So once again, log on to the Epstein Hitting, epsteinhitting.com. I always get it wrong. I'm sorry. You have so many websites.
I do.
Epsteinhitting.com.
You can go to any of them.
Yes.
And
they'll
get
all
confused.
link together. And now look, who would have thought 10 years later, or more now, we're doing a podcast, and we're the most successful hitting podcast on the freaking market. Who would have guessed?
Right. Who would have guessed?
You've got Jace Tingler, who is the manager for the Padres, who worked in that basement. I worked in that basement, and we're doing a podcast.
That's right. Rajay Davis was in that same basement.
What year was Rajay Davis?
Oh, man.
Do you remember what year Rajay was?
Was Rajay with the Blue Jays too? It was after he was with the Giants.
How old is Jace Tingler, by the way? He's 38, I think. I think he's like 38. So he's well older than me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't know Rajay.
I didn't know Rajay.
Oh,
Davis.
God, we had some fun times. Yeah. Rajay and my dad. We were trying to get Rajay, because he just hit balls the other way, and he just got pounded in all the time. That was kind of his he's like, man, I got to learn how to hit the inside pitch. My dad's like, dude, it's not that hard, man. And so we worked, and he would try to lift the inside pitch. I'm going to try to swing it up more to hit the inside pitch, and that didn't work. Like every time he would do that, he would roll over it. Yeah. So, we're going through and we're looking at video, and then all of a sudden I said something. I've used this with a lot of players, and it doesn't make sense. I'm like, I want you to finish low on that inside pitch. Yeah. I want you to feel like you're swinging down. And so by that feel, he wasn't really swinging down, but he was swinging up less. And all of a sudden, they start launching like at the right trajectory. And he's like, that is the weirdest feeling I've ever had. I feel like I'm swinging straight down.
Yeah.
But the balls are on a perfect trajectory. I'm not rolling over any of these. So, to each their own. But that's what I remember about Rajay. I don't know what year that was. I'm trying to pull up. It was a year or two after the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he with the Giants? No, it was after Oakland. So it was it was around 2011, maybe.
Okay. He came up, right. He came up with Oakland. I think he did.
No, I think he came up with San Francisco. He was only with San Francisco he was with Pittsburgh. God, he's been with everyone. My goodness.
Okay. Oh, he's one of those journeymen.
Yeah.
Hit one of the biggest home runs, though, ever in the World Series, 2000. We talked about Game 7. Go back in the archives and listen to that.
So great. Such a great human being, too. He's an awesome guy.
Seems like a great teammate. Episode 42 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, talking today about spring training, pretty much everything spring training as it relates to hitters. And there's so many topics that we can break off into and talk about here. Spring training, though, going back to your dad, going back to Ted Williams, speaking of which, and going back to even you, spring training has changed so much. It's become such a marketing tool for Major League Baseball, and it's become a revenue driver. There are so many games played. There weren't this many games played even when you were in spring training, in minor league spring training, or I don't know if you got a camp invite, but when your dad was in spring training, it's changed so much in all areas.
Yeah, no, I never had a big league camp invite, but old spring training, when you look at these videos, it's about guys that, they had second jobs, right? They had to work in the off season, probably up until the 1960 or so, unless you were a superstar. So, guys weren't in shape. They didn't have enough money to just hit and go to the gym and work out all the time and hang out with their family in the off season. So it was stretching, a lot of stretching, a ton of running just to get guys in shape so they didn't puke. They had to get all the nicotine out of their lungs. It was way different. And then, towards the end, it was, okay, let's get our timing. Well, now guys, they come to spring training in shape. So they're working on, they have machines set up, in the tunnels, the outdoor cages at 100 miles an hour. They're trying to see velocity. They're getting game live at bats as much as they can. Pitchers are there early, but pitchers aren't letting it rip, quite yet either. So, the hitters are really trying to get a jump start on their timing. Yeah, more than anything else, at least big leaguers. There might be some guys in the minor leagues that have been working on things in the off season, either with themselves or their own hitting coaches, or maybe they're under the guidance of their minor league hitting coordinators, or hitting coaches within the organization, and they'll continue to work on that early. Early work. They'll get out there at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. But for the most part, guys are in shape now, and they want to get off to a good start. So they're working on their timing more than anything else. Yeah.
And think about it too, that surprises me a little bit with how much things have changed and how much hitters have the head start over pitchers, because they do. Pitchers don't, as you mentioned, let it rip. Hitters still struggle early in the year, though. You would think still having that, getting that timing down, they still struggle on average, struggle the majority in the beginning of the year. Is there some problem with transitioning from, and some guys too are playing winter ball as well, younger guys. So is there and basically everybody's obviously hitting in winter and working out. So how do guys transition properly? How do you think they should transition properly from winter ball to spring training that could help them get off to quicker starts come late March, early April, once the regular season rolls around?
Yeah, I think, I don't think the frontline pitchers in spring training are out there throwing all their breaking balls. I think the reason guys struggle is because of the mix, less than the stuff. So a spring training mix is going to be usually more fastballs, especially early spring training. So you'll see a lot of guys that are fastball hitters. They get really hot during spring training. Yeah. Especially the first couple of weeks of seeing live pitching. When the bell goes off, all of a sudden the competitive juices come back out a little bit, and those pitchers aren't throwing 2-1 fastballs anymore. So I think that's a big part of I think the mix is what separates a lot of spring training from actual when the season starts. But how can they be successful when the bell goes off? Really doing their homework. Still, even though that pitcher may not have it may be whatever, April 1st, but they still have video of that guy, from last year. So going through and studying and having a plan, a lot of times when the season goes off, guys just kind of, it's a whirlwind, right? Like spring training ends, you maybe go to one or two sites for some random exhibitions, and then boom, here we go.
Right.
And we're not like in that rhythm and that process of the season where we get to the park at a certain time. We study the pitcher we're going to see, maybe we set up that machine accordingly. And so I think it takes guys, a couple weeks at least to get in the rhythm of that, 162 game season.
Yeah. There's George Springer type level guys in spring training, and then there's Joe Panic guys type in spring training who are trying to, one's got a large contract, guaranteed spot, where he's going to hit, and then one guy's trying to still make the club. And you see that with so many young guys in your organization, my organization, throughout baseball. You see that with so many young guys trying to win a spot. Not only on the 40-man roster, because they're probably already on that, but on the 25-man roster, and they've got their shot, or at least maybe even a shot to be kind of a shuttle AAA to major league type guy. What's their approach to spring training? Because it's certainly different than a George Springer type, than a JT Realmuto type, for guys who are just trying to get their timing down and see pitches.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. There's a lot more pressure on those guys.
The bell better go off, that competitive bell, early for them.
The competitive bell, and sometimes that hurts them, right? Yeah. Like they try too hard to make that spot. And you know what? You see a lot of guys that kick ass and they still don't make a roster.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like Panic, everybody knows what Panic can do. Panic should be much better. I'm a huge Joe Panic fan, and I just felt like I don't know if he got let down. Maybe he doesn't listen. I just feel like there's so much more to that guy's swing. Maybe he doesn't, maybe his eyes or, his fast twitch muscles aren't what they should, but I really feel like he's a really solid hitter. But, a lot of times they know what these guys do and they're looking for a spark, and sometimes it's not offensively, sometimes it's how is this guy mesh with the other players? Like, is he going to bring some, continuity to the clubhouse, or can he fill roles, playing third or first or second, anywhere out there? I know Keston Kira is going to play first base for the Brewers this year. I mean, there's a guy that I don't think he played first base at all his career, coming up, but he's, taking one for the team because the guy can hit. So I think those guys definitely have to prove themselves, but you also have to have the mindset that, even if you hit 500 in spring training, that might not, what I mean? That's not the whole thing. Because a lot of guys hit really well.
Yeah, and there's so many external factors, contracts and service time that decide all of this. So it almost, in a way, with how bad it might be for that player, knowing that they could ultimately be cut from the 25-man roster because of those circumstances that are out of their control, it's almost like a relief in a way, no?
It could be, yeah. I think
take the pressure off a little bit.
Take the pressure off a little bit. That, what, if you hit 500, that's not going to guarantee you a spot. Or, what, maybe they just gave you an invite in a minor league contract because they're trying to save money. And it doesn't matter if you hit 230 or 430 this spring, you're going to make that roster because you're of value to that team. So, I mean, I saw Billy Hamilton sign a minor league deal the other day, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of ex-major league guys that signed minor league deals recently.
Right.
And that's just to get them to camp and see if they still have it, see if they still work hard.
The air quotes, the minor league deal, but that it's
not
kind of a major league deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a minor league deal, but he's not making, $2,000 a month.
No, he's not. I know we're jumping around here, but how was your dad's? What was some stories from your dad when he was in spring training? And how was it different? I mean, how does it compare? I think that the audience will probably be pretty curious about that, seeing what the marketing machine nowadays is of spring training.
There were the two stories, or I guess there's maybe three spring training. I think I told you about the Pete Rose and the Johnny Bench, Hall of Famer for sure. There's that story, but one of them was it was. This is more of a Ted Williams story, but it was. Hey, it's spring training. It's early. It's Williams' first year, with the Senators, and I think Wayne Terwilliger was a coach, infield coach, and then somebody else was a coach. I can't remember who it is. So anyway, Williams is sitting on the bench talking to all the reporters. The team is out. The outfielders are running. They're doing pickoffs and rundowns, right? So the pitcher picks up at first, and then they run down.
Yeah.
And so really the only people involved are the first baseman, the pitcher, the second baseman, and the shortstop, right? And everyone else is a runner. So they're going through, and guys are farting around, trying to get out of the pickles like everybody does.
Right.
So they're doing the rundown, and so Terwilliger and the other coach, they're arguing, no, when we want to do this, and when you release the ball, you want to peel this way, or you want to release the ball and peel this way. I want you to take 2 steps before the ball's going. And the coaches start arguing, and Williams looks up from like his interview, and he's like, "What the hell's going on out there?" So he runs out from the dugout, and the coaches are like, "Ted, we got to do this and this and this and this." And Ted looks at him and goes, "Screw this crap, let's hit." And that's what it was. Like They didn't care about defense it's so much. It's so much more organized now. Like there's a spreadsheet with. And everybody's got a stopwatch, and everybody knows when we're changing stations and when we're going to work on defense and when we're going to work on offense. It's just it's so customized now, especially with the conditioning part of it and the weight training part of it. They didn't have that part of it. They didn't lift weights. Like when I was in spring training, so it was around 2000, we lifted weights at the end of the worst, longest day you could ever imagine. So I remember you had to run the 300-yard shuttle. I think we talked about this. The 300-yard shuttle, which was, 50 down and back 3 times, right?
Something like
back,
that.
300, right? Yeah, down and back. Anyway, so it was awful. You had, based on your size, you had to get a certain time. So I remember we did it at 9 a.m., right? I went in, we had early hitting at 8. 9 a.m., everybody lined up, did their thing. Everybody's crapped out. I'm cramping up, blah, blah, blah. Then we go into inter squads, like right after. Yeah. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And then at the end of that day, we would work out and lift. And there's no way they would do that today. It'd be like, okay, we got to make sure you're not going to injure your legs, by overdoing it, or whatever there. So, I just think it's different. Before it was like, are you fat?
Right.
Did I tell the story about my dad and Hondo in spring training?
No.
I think we didn't talk about this. So I don't remember if we did. So when Williams got there, he looked at Hondo's, like, I don't know how big Frank Howard was, 6'7", 300 pounds, something like that. So he looks at Hondo, like he just eyeballs everybody. How much do you weigh? And Hondo says 300 pounds. And Williams says, okay, you need to get down to 270 by the end of spring training. And he looks at my dad. My dad wasn't fat at all. He's like, how much do you weigh, Mike? My dad's like 230. And he says, you need to get down to 210 by the start of the season. So these guys like malnourished themselves. Like their spring training was probably god awful because he was going to find the shit out of them if they didn't make weight.
Right.
And so, spring training goes by and they have all these weigh-ins and all this stuff. So they, Hondo goes to get on the scale, whatever the day before camp ends. And it's like 272.
Yeah.
And he looks at my dad, said he looked terrible, dehydrated. He looked awful. So it's 272. So he says, hold on. So he takes off. He's got this big gold chain. He takes off his underwear. He takes off his shower shoes, and he sits there. And sure enough, 270 right on the button. Right. My dad gets on the scale. He hits the number by, I don't know, a couple pounds. So that night they went out to eat and drink.
Yeah.
And there was a surprise weigh-in the next day, and Hondo had put on 15 pounds or something in one night. That's how much food and how dehydrated he was. So you can imagine what his performance was like. So I mean, it's a much different scene. I think it's a cool scene. I mean, I'm getting the itch. Like my kids are like, hey, can we go to Florida or Arizona and see some games and I have daughters, right? So it's like it's a fun thing. It's warm weather. It's all the people you watch on TV now. All of a sudden, my wife always likens it to professional college atmosphere, right? Mm-hmm. So it's professional baseball players.
That's a good point.
It's a small atmosphere where there's only 10,000 people, 8,000 people.
Yeah, cool. Major League, and that story you just told about your dad and Frank Howard, Major League the movie it's widely considered a caricature of Major League Baseball. It's one of my favorites, obviously. I'm sure it is with you as well. But spring training used to be like that in some instances where the facilities weren't great. I mean, up until what, mid 90s, really, even in the early 2000s, the facilities were still fairly shitty. Now, I mean, it's like a country club for players, but everything is so well organized and operated. and efficient, as you mentioned, that it gets players into shape where they need to be. They're already in shape, but where they need to be offensively, defensively, etc., without getting hurt. Injuries still happen, but we have some of the best ways now to get players in shape based off all the external factors that are involved.
Yeah, and it's so not, and the players look forward to it, right? And the players' families, and they go down and rent a nice house, where it's warm, because not everybody lives in. I mean, a lot of guys live near their spring training because that gives them really an extra couple months of being at home with their family. But I don't know, it just brings this aura of maybe the season, but the weather, the sunshine, the warmth. People are playing, the kids are out, people are sitting on the grass berms watching baseball. It's it's a really great time of year.
It is. I agree. It's a great time of the year for the entire country, and especially if you live in Florida and Arizona. And I want to circle back to something. We talked about timing earlier in our segment here. Besides timing, in your experience, what is the biggest struggle that hitters face during spring training in trying to get game ready?
I think,
or does it vary? Does it vary? I mean, because every hitter is sort of different in their movements and
hitting wise, it's timing. Like, because it doesn't matter whether it's a fastball or a breaking ball that So we're seeing tilt and we're seeing break. We still have to control our timing to get to those pitches. So I think it all comes down to timing. And the reason I say it's for big leaguers is because for the most part, their mechanics are good. There's not going to be, you have, what's his name, who tried to change his swing, Hayward, right?
A few years
I don't know who he's with, there's certain guys that went through a swing change in the winter, that are trying to, look how long it took Tiger Woods to have a swing change, right? Like that's not an easy process when you've had tens of thousands of reps already under your belt. Justin Turner did that. I don't know the history of that swing change when he did it, the process. It was, obviously in the off season, but how long it took him after that, did he kind of have a mediocre season, to work through the timing and rhythm of that, or did he come out running? So I would say it's that, quite honestly, as an infielder, freaking fly balls, man. That was the hardest part of spring training. High sky, there's no clouds in Arizona. Now, Florida's different. You got clouds, but the high desert sky, and they would crank those jugs machines up to 5,000 miles an hour and shoot that thing in the air behind the first baseman and second baseman in that triangle. That was the hardest part of spring training for me.
Oh yeah. Well, there at times can be a real high sky in Florida as well when it's very, very clear and very, very bright. But it's not like Arizona. You're exactly right. Arizona, and I think a lot of it is because those ballparks are placed kind of in they look like anyway. I've never been in the middle of nowhere where you look at, I'll just use Dunedin, for example, Clearwater, there's shit all around. So the sky, obviously, there's more things going on. It doesn't seem like as high a sky. But I want to touch on this as well. What are live game at bats like for guys in spring training? What's their approach? We already talked, again, it goes back to timing, but what's the main approach besides getting and seeing pitches, getting a look at certain pitches? What's that approach that could make them successful in spring training and then going into the season?
Yeah, I think early, your first 10 at bats, you want to see as many pitches as possible. So you don't necessarily want to get up there and swing at the first pitch and jump a fastball early in the count. Because you want to see a couple breaking balls from this guy, and you want to see a couple fastballs in different locations. So if your first 10 at bats, if you could, if you only see like 14 pitches, that's probably not very beneficial to you. But if you can go through your first 10 at bats and maybe see 40 pitches, that's going to help you for your next 30 to 40 at bats that you're going to see in the spring. So that would be my advice with younger players, to get in there and see some pitches early, your first couple of bats, but sometimes it's like, hey man, I might get released. I'm speaking of a minor leaguer right now, I might get released. Like I got to turn on something here early and show these guys that I'm a little bit different than everyone else. So, sometimes a minor league at bat is going to be much different. The major league guys are trying to see, more pitches. Minor league guys should do that, but a lot of times their back's against the wall and they gotta do something special to stay employed.
Right. And one story that I kind of reference back to there, to your point, last year in spring training, Blue Jays playing the Tigers, and I'm watching Miguel Cabrera go through his at-bats and plate appearances, seeing pitches, intensity is very, very low. And then on the flip side, I look at a guy who's almost 20 years younger than him, who I love, by the way, Daz Cameron. You probably heard of him.
Yeah.
And you've probably even done an evaluation on him. That guy was high intensity. Everything was like Game 7 of the World Series, his plate appearances. So the approaches right there are just different based off the age, experience, and the lack thereof when it comes to Daz Cameron, for example, younger players like him trying to make a big league roster or at least put their name in the running to get them on the 40-man for a possible call-up later in the year.
Yeah, it's like the old saying of the young bull and the old bull sitting
Right.
on the hill. Hey, Dad, we should run down there and blah blah blah. All the we should walk down there. And, I mean, it's experience and wisdom, right? Cabrera is good. Good Lord, how many spring trainings has he gone through, right? And he knows what's good for him. That's why you have to surround yourself by people that have been there. Like, you have to find a way to, those veteran guys to. Maybe they don't even want to talk to you, but you just kind of like them all. You're always hanging in the background, watching what they do, how they do it, how they prepare. When they eat, sometimes that's a big thing. Like, they'll have a different way to fuel their bodies than everyone else is. Maybe at a certain time, wow, these guys eat something smaller earlier. And then they eat something again, 30 minutes before, where I had a big breakfast, 2 hours before game time or something like that. And now you have to lead on experience when it comes to spring training, because, I mean, if you're a guy that just got brought up to camp and it's your first spring training, or you got an invite, you're a AA player, you're like the kid with ADD that's just bouncing off the walls. You're just so excited.
Lack of wisdom, right? You have no wisdom. These players, though, the big leaguers who have so much experience. By the way, that was a great quote by you, by the way, there moments ago. But the big leaguers who have that experience, the guys who've been in the league for a long time, they've got that wisdom. They know, like you mentioned, what they need to do to get ready.
That's right.
Sometimes
and you can learn from that. Yeah, most of them do. If they have a decent checkbook and they've been in the league for a while, then there's always something you can learn from someone.
Right. Let's switch gears here to the minor league side. You were on the minor league side. Did you get into a major league game?
No.
Okay. So, but there are guys. So let's say there are guys who, I mean, nowadays it seems like guys get a lot of guys who aren't going to make the 40-man get shuttled into spring training games late. I guess that's the way spring training has evolved and it's changed. But you're not going to make the 25-man. You're not on the 40-man. You're only a year into your professional career. You're still trying to make a name for yourself. You're just trying to make a roster, a minor league roster. What is the approach then? Well, how are you going about it as a hitter on the minor league side in minor league camp, trying to make that impression?
Yeah, you just gotta get your work done. I always tell my guys, get in there as early as you can, to get extra swings in the morning, to see some extra looks of velocity, with the machines they'll have set up in the cages, just to kind of see speed. And you have to carry yourself like you have that spot. If you're shuttling around like I'm trying to, I got to do this, I got to do that, it doesn't work. You have to sell it to yourself that, look, I'm locked into this position. I was in a position where I had a really good first season of pro ball. And I was, I wasn't a huge prospect, but I did really well. I hit 330 something, hit some home runs. And so I had a great off season with the Angels had a camp in Southern California for all the minor leaguers and major leaguers that live there. We would practice, I guess, I don't remember what it was, every Tuesday and Saturday or something. And we'd practice at Rancho Cucamonga. So the last one at Cucamonga was, and it was awesome. So, cause it's like, there's guys like me that are played 1 year pro ball. And then it's like Darren Erstad and Troy Percival and Troy Gloss. Like, I mean, the big leaguers that live in the area were all there. So, so at the end, we had like this big, publicity day out at Cucamonga, probably like mid-February or early February. And they allow fans out there, and I'm hitting in a group with Troy Gloss. And I'm like, look at this. So anyway, I made him look like a little child during this was my Hall of Fame acceptance speech, right? Like this was my time to shine. So I hit, in it's just BP, and they busted the pearls out, and it's sunny and warm, and I must have hit 15 home runs out of 20 pitches or something. The guy threw me like I was just like in a
locked
zone.
In. Wow,
locked in. And the guy, it was BP or whatever. But so after my agent was there, and he's like, "Damn, Jake, he hadn't seen me right in the off season." And the farm director comes up. What was his name? I can see him. He's still involved with baseball. His brother played for the Pacers. What's that guy's name? Reggie Miller? Reggie Miller. Right?
Reggie Miller's brother.
Reggie Miller's brother.
Shit.
So it was Reggie Miller's brother. Dwayne Miller, I think, was his name. So Dwayne says...
You keep going. I'm going to look that up. This is a great story.
Yeah. So Dwayne... And the sister, Cheryl Miller or something, she was like a WNBA. So
I know
says,
Cheryl Miller, yes.
Yeah. So Daryl says, "Jake, I mean, you were awesome this, fall. We're going to have you skip low A and come here to Cucamonga." Right. And Tim Wallach, who was an assistant coach at Fullerton, he now had a job with the Angels, and you're going to play for Tim. And I'm like, man, this is the greatest news in the world. Like this, my wife, we were dating at the time, right? And we lived there. So I'm like, oh, she'll be able to see, and I won't be in the middle of, where was it? Rapids, Iowa. So, I kick ass there. I go to spring training, and all of a sudden I'm not with that team, right? I'm with the low A team. And I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. And then I go 3 for 10 with a home run and a double, and I get released the next day. And I'm like, wow, that was it. So I get called into the office. He says, "Yeah, sorry, we got to let you go. You did well, but we have 2 players that are, we have 2 catchers that one was a 5th rounder, one was a 2nd rounder. We're going to convert them to play first base, and you're kind of the odd man out."
And this was Daryl Miller, correct?
Daryl Miller, yeah.
Daryl, yeah.
So I was like, well, that sucks. Like, 2 weeks ago, you told me I was going here. And then at some point they had a conversation within the department that said, this is the odd man out. It didn't matter what I did, right? 10 at bats, hit the ball well. And that's just kind of how it is. You had no money investing in it. So I said, "Oh, okay, thanks for, can I have $100 to get home? Like gas money?" "Sure, Jake. Yeah, we'll give you some gas money to go home." Anyway, so like 2 months later, I'm, still crying, I think, and I go to play golf in Southern California, who's in front of me?
Who?
Daryl Miller's in the group in front of me. I hit into that son of a bitch all day.
Yeah.
But anyway, the moral of the story is sometimes you don't know, and sometimes it's not what you do.
Not in your control.
Sometimes it's not in your control, and you have to know that you can't put external pressure on yourself. The best players in the world. Now, you can't be lazy and you can't be cocky either.
Yeah.
But you also can't. There's no reason to add more pressure than what's already there, and you have to be your best self. And if your best self gets you there, then it's something that you're destined to do. If your best self doesn't get you there, then you become a hitting coach.
Well, and a successful one though at that.
Yeah, right. You got to, everybody has what they're good at, right? And you got to find that. You got to find. Did
you ever broach the topic with them at the time that, hey, what about, can I get in? Because the Yankees now do this. I was reading a story about this a couple of years ago where they look at minor league players and they say, well, then he's not going to make the big leagues, but we can groom him to be a coach in the organization and continue on what we're trying to build here. Did you ever broach that topic with them? Like, hey, I may want to coach here. I may want to do this. Anything like that? Or at the time were you're young and saying,
I was too young.
Fuck you guys, right?
I was definitely too young and had that mindset. But I also had the mindset and had the mindset of I'm going to try to latch on with somebody else, right? Like I had decent stats and whatever. So again, I got an offer. I got 2 offers, and they were to go to the same level I was at the year before.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not 18, I'm 22. So you never know. But yes, I have a good friend of mine. We talked about PJ Pilotera at the Yankees assistant hitting coach. That was him, man. He was a grinder. He grinded in college. He wasn't even supposed to play at Fullerton. Played at Fullerton. Play the Yankees. I don't know how long he kicked around in the Yankees organization. He got about 40 at bats a year. Was a backup catcher. Caught Clemens during rehab. All kinds of stuff. And then after a while, they're like, we really can't give you a roster spot anymore. You want to coach? He's like, heck yeah, I want to coach. So, that's a wonderful thing, if you have an organization. Again, it's why, because he's a hard worker. He's a likable guy. He can communicate well. People want to be around him. He has that personality. He's going to made a perfect coach.
Yeah. So I'm really fascinated. We don't have to get too much into it, but I'm fascinated with what your mindset was at the time, getting called in and getting blindsided like that, because so many players get blindsided like that every year. I mean, what else was on your mind at that time? I mean, what were you thinking when those words came out, when Daryl said, we'll have to let you go? I mean, were you I
knew it. I knew it earlier. Right. So,
sorry, I'm bringing you back. I'm bringing this is like a psychology session here. I'm bringing you back to your horrible memory. I'm sorry, but
the day before we played the Cubs, and I think I was 1 for 3 or something like that. And I get off the bus coming back from Hohokam, I think was the name of where the Cubs were. And we get back to Gene Autry, and we get off the bus, and they're like, somebody's like, "Where's Epstein?" I'm like, "Oh, right, that's me." And so they're like, "Oh, come here, we got to do a photo shoot." So I did a photo shoot with Upper Deck. I'm like, this is big time, and people are giving me shit getting off the bus, right? I got like 60 guys laughing at me and making fun of me, and while I'm doing the photo shoot. So I sleep really well that night. I wake up the next morning, and sure enough, you see the thing in Major League with the red tag. Yeah, this was a pink Post-it note.
Yeah,
a pink Post-it note that is in your locker that's open. Like, we didn't have closed lockers like in Major League. It was just open. So you walk into the clubhouse and it's like, oh shit. Like, it's really quiet. So you knew something was going on. And then you get to your locker and there's a thing that says, see Eric, right? I still see that image in my nightmares. So Eric was the name of our clubhouse guy, I guess, for spring training for minor leagues. So I go to see him and he says, "Yeah, you need to go see." And he walks you, because you're not going to punch the clubby, right? He's a nice guy. So he walks you to the office, and there was Daryl and the assistant guy, who I swear ended up being the GM of the Angels one day.
Billy Epler, not Billy Epler.
No, before him. He looked like Carlton. We used to call him Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh. Like, that's who he looked like. I can't remember his name. We'll have to look him up. GM. He was probably the GM around, I don't know, 2005 or something like that.
Let me look it up.
And so, sure enough, they just said, "Hey, that's what they said. We have a couple guys. If you want to stick around to extended spring training, and with the 17-year-old Latin players."
It wasn't Bill Stoneman, by the way, was it?
No,
it wasn't him. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I remember Stone. Maybe he was the assistant GM.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't Stoneman.
Oh, I think I know who it was. Oh, wait, was it? Was it Tony Riggins?
Tony Riggins. Yes, it was Tony Riggins. That's the guy. You got to find a picture of him. All right.
I do actually. He does look a little bit like Carlton.
Did he have little glasses on or something? Maybe.
No, this is a picture. This is a picture from 2010. Kind of going through his biography here. Really cool.
Was he ever a GM? Was he the GM or an assistant?
He was. GM? He was from 2007 to 2011, I think, and then Billy Epler. No, actually. And then somebody took over before Billy Epler. Yeah, maybe Stoneman.
Okay. Yeah.
No, he took over for Stoneman.
He did. Okay.
This gentleman here, but let me see.
So no, they just say you can stick around and go to extended. If somebody gets hurt, we'll plug you in. And you can go play. I'm like, oh my god, this is awful. Why would I want to do that? So I was like, well, could you just give me my release and I'll try to latch on with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
There's still another month of spring training left. There's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then it just, we'll sign you. You want to go back to short season?
Right.
Probably not, and so I had to, come to Jesus. And
did you talk to your dad about this at the time?
Yeah.
I mean, what did he say? What was his
once I got the other offers. No, he was like, just move on with your life.
Yeah. That's not worth it, or was it?
Yeah, he was like, just, finish. I had 1 semester left. Finish your degree, get a job, move on with your life, figure out what you want to do. Like, don't be 29 years old and then have to go back to school because you're a career minor leaguer.
Right.
And so, I weighed on that, and he was right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to look at yourself too as a player and say, do you have those special attributes?
Yeah.
No, I didn't think I did.
Mm-hmm.
I could hit. I couldn't see, Yeah, bad vision. That's why the pop-ups killed me.
Yeah.
I wasn't super mobile. I mean, I wish we had the kind of strength training and flexibility programs they have today that they could have put me on and made me a different. Maybe Tom Brady could have hooked me up with some
trainer, Alex Guerrero.
Yeah,
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I would have been something. But I wasn't a major leaguer. I didn't have. I mean, of course, I wanted to be a major leaguer, but when I saw what major leaguers were like, I was like, I don't quite move like that. I don't. I could probably stand in the box like that, but I don't know if I can do the rest of it.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. I think that was very interesting and insightful. I brought you back. Yeah. I'm sorry I brought you back to maybe a bad memory.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll be in a bad mood all week. Appreciate that. Sorry. I'm gonna take it out on my coach.
I'll get a text later in the week. Yeah, I can't do the episode this weekend because we got to do a best of. All right, we'll wrap up our topic here. I don't think I missed anything. So let's move on to our final segment, our listener questions. We have 2 of them this week, and this first one comes to us from Aiden. He didn't say where he was from, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Aiden writes, and is very short. He says, Jim, I have a quick question for you guys. What does Jake feel are the best coaching cues for a struggling / slumping hitter? Thank you for the answer.
Just like the old reliable. Why do guys get into slumps? Typically they get into a slump because their swing has a hole in it, right? So when their swing has a hole in it, then they do something to cheat, right? I'm going to try to hit it out in front. If I let the ball get deep, I swing under everything. So now I'm going to get jumpy and I'm going to try to do too much. So it's not that the swing has changed. It's that their timing isn't as perfect as it was when they were hitting the ball well. So I'm telling you, like the old adage of, hey, see it deep and shoot it up the middle. It's almost like hard pepper. Just do that in BP for 2 or 3 days. And what happens is when they start to let the ball get deep, they may realize that they're not able to do it and they're swinging under it. Like all of a sudden their bat drag or some kind of loop is coming back in. And so they're like, oh, okay, let me, all of a sudden I'm going to aim for the top of the ball more or whatever to keep that barrel from dropping too much. And then they'll hit a couple line drives to right or the opposite field and then up the middle. And then all of a sudden they'll get some confidence back. And then, hopefully that shows up in games. So less is more, is when you're in that slump mode is I'm always the guy that, hey, we need to get back on track. Let it get deep. Don't hit the bottom of it. Because typically that's where that slump comes from. We're losing our barrel early. So we might overcook that for a day or 2 during BP. But if it's somebody that I don't know and I'm not with, it's, hey, take a few back through the middle in BP. Don't try to do too much. Let it get deep and a line drive up the middle. The problem is the second baseman plays there now, or the shortstop. So.
And it kind of helps you slow things down too. When because sometimes I think when guys, we talked about that many times, but a lot of times when guys get into slumps, there's so many things that they think about and they want to do and they want to change. But you just made it really simple, saying, "Hey, hit the bottom of the ball, just go right back up the middle." Almost the simplest way to get out of a slump. It seems almost too simplistic and too good to be true.
Yeah, we just try too hard.
Yeah,
it works. I mean, it's worked. 150 years ago, like. Take a few back through the middle. We're usually, there are guys that get into slumps because they're late on everything, right? And maybe they're just late on everything. This might be 15% of players, 10 to 50% of players. And that's a rhythm thing. That's where we look at the pitcher, or I look at the pitcher, I look at the hitter. When is that hitter starting to move? When are they starting their first load? It's usually a tick late, so that stride is that foot's getting down a tick late, and then we're obviously late on the swing. So, for a small percentage, it's just, okay, we're late. But typically when players go into slumps, they're, everybody says the same way, they're pulling off. Well, everybody swings to the pull side, right? Everybody rotates to the left. If they're right-handed, they rotate to the right. Like when people say, oh, you're pulling off, but pulling off happens on every pitch. Okay. Because that's the way your body turns. It opens. But when that happens, if you're early, you essentially pulled off. Okay. So that's where the whole, hey, let's calm it down a little bit and take balls back through the middle helps.
All right. Great question, Aiden. Thank you very much. We've got one more question. This comes to us from Mike via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. And I sent you these videos via email to kind of go along with his question. And he writes, Jim and Jake, listen to last week's podcast. And Jake mentioned that the back knee stays behind the ankle. Now, does that mean it stays stationary, or does the kneecap shift slightly prior to foot strike. I included clips. He included clips of Tatis Jr. and Real Muto for you, Ep, to reference. And he says, again, does it mean that it stays stationary, or does the kneecap shift slightly prior to foot strike? Thanks, Mike. Great question, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a little confused with the question. I'm looking at it right now again. I know what he's saying. I also will tell you Real Muto's lower half is incredibly good. He's the swing I haven't looked at. He's got really strong legs. But I think what Mike's talking about is the knees behind the ankle is a bad thing. Like if the knee is pointing behind the ankle, like
front ankle, right? Or is that what
you're
talking about?
No, it would. Oh, I don't know. You mentioned that the back knee stays behind the ankle. No, I would say it would be his back knee and his back ankle. So if the knee starts to point backwards in the middle of the stride, which Real Muto's knee kind of does, about halfway down, all of a sudden his knee kind of his kneecap shifts back, and the weight goes to the outside of his foot. So if you look there, the weight is in the outside of the foot. That is not a stable position. So if he was on some kind of balance ball, a Bosu ball or something like that, he'd fall over. Okay, he would wobble and fall over to the backside. So it's not a good move. Now he fixes it. It just happens very slightly. And then all of a sudden, once his stride comes forward out of his big leg kick, the knee comes back inside and it works. So when you're looking at the kneecap, it is for stability. It is to make sure. So this is a very, on a scale of like 1 to 10, where 10 would be severe. This clip of Real Muto is, it's like a 2. The knee kind of shifts a little bit when he's at the top of his stride, but then it fixes itself. With young players, what you'll see is the knee is so bad backwards behind the ankle that the foot actually rolls to the outside of the foot while you're trying to stride forward. That means there's too much weight back. So it's all about the foot. If the back foot stays flat and it doesn't roll to the outside of the back foot, you're fine. If you ever see the back foot roll to the outside during the stride, then if you look at the knee will be bad. And you'll have to fix that instability.
So I think, Mike, we answered your question. I think we did.
I hope so. Right back, if not.
Exactly. If we didn't, Mike, we apologize right back, and we'll try to answer it again next week. JimboPodcast21@gmail.com. So, Aiden, Mike, thank you for the questions. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast for new episodes every Monday morning at 9 a.m. You know where the show is available by now. I'm sure you do. And check out our YouTube page, The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, for archived episodes. And email us your questions, JimboPodcast21@gmail.com. Find us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. Next week, we discuss what makes a successful college hitter. And you were just in the college game not too long ago. And college baseball in about a week or so is also starting up. So it's kind of very timely, I guess, for lack of a better term, to start talking about what makes a college hitter successful, really at all levels, I think.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. In fact, softball started this past Friday. And so it was fun to catch up. Bailey got a couple RBIs her first game. That's always a good start. We'll see what she does. There's probably some more games. The problem is this frozen Arctic blast is just destroying. Like here in College Station, at Texas A&M, they have a tournament. They had to cancel like 4 teams because it's so icy and cold here. People couldn't even get in. So
there's supposed to be another winter storm next week too. Across the country.
Well, hopefully it stays north of Tampa Bay.
It will.
And
we'll just get a lot of rain.
And Houston. Rain's all right.
and College Station.
That's right.
All right. That's next week. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next Monday.